So, it is day 33 of the 1 year fast. And I'm feeling brilliant. I'm about 68 hours into a 72-hour fast. So coming to the end of that 3-day fast, I'm kind of looking forward to my protein plant-based shake with some spirulina. That's what I use to transition off the fast. And maybe I'll take the liberty and have a yogurt as well. And then tomorrow I'll step into regular food. So yeah, I'm feeling really well. This morning I did try the new ketone reader and did actually get some numbers. So there was a count on the ketone reader this morning. It was a count of 11, which is level 3 in terms of state of ketosis, which is mild ketosis. And I just took the reading again on the new ketone reader, and I got a reading of 0. So clearly either I'm not moving into ketosis, or the new ketone reader doesn't register accurate counts. I'm hoping it's the latter. So ketones, a bit disappointed on that, but that aside, I'm feeling really good. You know, I was just reflecting. So there goes my hydrogen water bottle. I know I showed this yesterday and a few times before. So this is what I drink during the 1 year fast. So hydrogenated water, I find it really beneficial. And yeah. So yeah, I was just reflecting, and I do recollect speaking with somebody at an event, and we just got onto the topic of fasting. And believe me, I didn't lead the conversation. We just got onto the topic. And this individual shared their protocol. So they were a regular faster. They like to fast for 2 days, maybe every 3 months. So a couple of days, 4 times a year. And it's really interesting what they were saying. So they came from Salt Lake City, from Utah, the wonderful state of Utah. I've actually been there once, and I traveled through the whole of Utah, and I have to say, absolutely magnificent state. Love it. So no, I was talking to this individual from Salt Lake City, clearly a Mormon, and they don't drink coffee. But they do drink quite a bit of soda. So they drink lots of fizzy drinks. And I was just speaking to this individual, really nice person, and they were saying that during the fast they drink soda. And I didn't want to contradict their protocol, because clearly everybody has their own path. And they're explaining that they go to a drive-through and get their soda, a very large cup, almost a bucket of soda, a couple of times a day during the fast. And I thought, that kind of made me think about the different ways that we can fast and how we can classify fasting. In the past, I've gone into fasts and I've had teas, herbal teas, normal tea, PG tips, coffees, even sometimes with a splash of milk. And I've had some juices, maybe a lemon juice in water. I've also in the past had herbal drinks as well. I did explain, I went to a herbalist back in the early 90s, explained I was going on a 3-day fast. The herbalist was quite upset when I explained I was fasting, because they weren't sure it was a good idea. At that time it wasn't so prevalent. But in the end, they did make me this really tasty concoction. So I've tried that as well during a fast. So it's not always been a case of just going with hydrogenated water. I've actually had fasts in the past where I've classified them as fasts, where it's just a wet fast. So no solid foods. So I was listening to this individual, and they explained that the purpose of their fast was more meditative, more spiritual. They wanted to abstain from food consumption so they could get more focused on the higher plane. And so that was a really interesting conversation, and definitely got me thinking about how we should all think about fasting. Now, it doesn't have to be a strict protocol of, again, I never ever do a dry fast, and I would actually discourage people from doing dry fasts unless they've got some kind of medical supervised direction on that particular fasting protocol. Again, I do the water, but I've in the past done the wet fasts, and the wet fasts can really include a whole array of different liquids. I'd also like to touch on, and I feel I've been getting a bit flippant during the course of the past 30 days plus. When I first started, I did say I would be very mindful that fasting is a privilege. To have the privilege to fast, there are many people that are forced into involuntary fasting. And so I want to ensure that I remind myself on a regular basis, and I feel I've been flippant over the past 30 days, that what I'm doing is a privilege. I have the privilege to, of my own volition, fast. I can consume without worry. So, and therefore, I really want to ensure that I remind myself on a regular basis that this is a privilege. In terms of these videos, again, they're here to act as a record, to try and measure, I'm not sure measure is the right word, but try and record mental, emotional, psychological, perhaps even spiritual health as I go through the 1 year fast. And I like to engage in moments of reverie, and maybe from those moments of reverie we can discern, post the 1 year fast, going back and being objective, some indicators. And just thinking back to maybe 6 months before COVID and all the crazy machinations that occurred during that period of time. And I definitely want to reserve maybe some time to talk about COVID. But for now, I remember it was just before COVID, and I was over at a company in Palo Alto in California. And Palo Alto is a pretty unique place in America. And this particular company was a high-tech, well-established, loads of heritage, well-established company. And I had a tour whilst I was there of the building, and they actually reserved a room of one of the founders. And this office space, this room that they'd preserved, was an actual time capsule. There was an old oak desk, there was leather furnishings. On the desk there was a really ancient looking phone. There was an ink well with an ink pen. It was a literal time capsule. And it's pretty incredible to see that. They're in the middle of this real high-tech business. This business that was multi-billion-dollar, $100 billion business. Set there within the heart of that whole campus was a time capsule of the office, of the room of one of the founders. And it's a complete contrast to this modern era. Again, the old oak desk with inkwell pens is pretty spectacular. Anyway, whilst I was at this company, I got to meet a few local people from Palo Alto. And I was in a room with one more mature, elegant lady, and she looked really sad, really upset. And of course I didn't want to pry or intrude, but the lady was just talking, and she was telling me that she grew up in Palo Alto as a child, and her parents had purchased many acres in Palo Alto, and she inherited that land, and also the properties. She told me that when she was a child, nearly all of Palo Alto was farm-based, and there were many canning factories that would can fruits all around Palo Alto. And she remembered that. And I'm guessing that part of her sad disposition was maybe she was reflecting on those days when maybe life was a bit simpler. Yeah, so it's definitely an interesting place. Actually, there's another gentleman there in Palo Alto, and he used to get a bus from way over the other side of the bay, and it apparently used to take him over 3 hours to get to, he used to use a bus because he wouldn't drive, over 3 hours to get from his home to work, and we'd do that both ways. So over 6 hours traveling every day. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's pretty incredible. And I said to him, did you find it challenging to do, well, obviously a question that's a bit dumb, but do you find it challenging? He actually said to me, no, Alfie, I don't. I enjoy sitting on the bus. I enjoy reading a book, getting into a zone, and he said it was like therapy. I personally would not find that therapeutic. I'd find that really frustrating, having to travel for 6 hours a day. But I can detect how that can be. Although I can't truly understand it, I can detect how it could be potentially therapeutic. Palo Alto, interesting place in America. So anyway, coming back to the 1 year fast, just coming to the end of this 72-hour fast in the 5th week of the 1 year fast. Again, the 1 year fast, I will fast for 3 days every week for 52 consecutive weeks. So yeah, I'm coming to the end of 72 hours. Next week will be the 6th week of the 1 year fast. Seems to be coming real momentum now. I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do next week. I might go with one 24-hour fast earlier in the week, and then potentially a 48-hour fast later in the week. We'll see. I'm still going to think about that one. Okay, that's me for today. Thank you.